I don't see much result when it's growing, but oh, here we go. And we're live.
Okay, looks like we are live on the Bridging the Divide. Welcome everyone. My name is Summer Joy Raymer. I'm the co-founder of the Sign Network and just a supporter of this ongoing conversation about bridging the divide with a group of women, Black women, white women, all race, all are welcome to this conversation. We are live on lots of different Facebook pages as well. So I just want to honor the contributions of the Sign Network's Facebook pages that are also honoring this conversation, which will be in for about an hour. And for those that were waiting for this to go live for the last half an hour, we apologize. We just had a little bit of a adjustment that we needed to do with our time. But we're really looking forward to this conversation. And the topic is, just to be really clear, it is under the Bridging the Divide. And the topic is, I'm not racist, but am I anti-racist? So welcome, and welcome Antoinette, who is really the co-host of this with me, Antoinette Hall Roots Data. And we are here with Michelle Monroe and Heather Elizabeth. So welcome everyone. Oh, and my apologies, and Heather and Lexi.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys introduce yourselves, so that way you guys get to know.
My name is Morgan Alexis. I go by Lexi. I live in Palm Springs, California, but I'm grown up kind of all over. And I'm here to help support some of my friends and people from Portland, as well as internet and the movement itself. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome.
I'm Heather Kirkpatrick, and I am the board secretary of Wall of Moms International. Born and raised in Oregon, Portland metro area. So have been kind of deeply entrenched in everything that's been going on there. And here to support this amazing woman who has welcomed me into the fold. So I'm loving that.
Awesome. I'm Antoinette Roots Data, and musician and activist and interfaith minister.
I'm Michelle Monroe. I'm a singer and activist.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Elizabeth, and I'm in Broomfield, Colorado, a recent transplant from Austin, Texas. And I am the founder of a movement called SHINE, and SHINE is an acronym for Supporting Humanity in Navigating Evolution. I'm so very grateful to be here with all of you and sharing this sacred space. Thank you.
And I already introduced myself, but I am Summer Joy Raymer, and I'm also honored to be a part of this conversation as an ongoing desire to be co-creating anti-racism culture. And I'm also in support of the WAMI organization through media support and whatever other way I can. So grateful.
Awesome. So I guess that the topic was that we were going to start with is I'm not racist, but am I anti-racist? And one of the things I was sitting here thinking about earlier today and over the weekend was about, do Black lives still matter? Because I've heard many people say it's like, yeah, Black lives matter. And she's got the t-shirt, which I'm very proud of her for wearing this t-shirt on the airplane, all through the airport. Everybody's seeing what she's standing for. It's like, does it still matter? Because past the protest or during the protest, like in Portland, the protest is 150 days strong now, and then other cities, they're not necessarily protesting anymore. But when they were in the thick of it, it mattered at that time. So now we're here in the end of October, going into November. It's like, does it still matter right now? Is it worth something as far as like being out in the streets or getting involved to learn how to be anti-racist, to sit there and you're going to jump into it instead of just saying, I believe and I love everybody, sort of thing, but it's like, but what does that mean, like right now, here today, as we're actually moving forward, you know? So that's my question.
Posed to whom?
Anybody, I mean, you know, the viewers who are watching, even to you guys who are sitting here, I mean, let's start. All right, let me just go ahead and I'll start with you, Heather. Heat. Heat. I know, like, well, for
Oh,
me personally, yeah, go ahead.
before we begin, perhaps we should define what anti-racism is and what racism is. Anybody want to grab their Google or whatever? Or does anybody have a definition, a hot definition ready to pull from? Because I think perhaps
Lexi's
people
got
may
it.
be,
The NAC International Perspectives and the Women of Global Solidarity. The way they define it is anti-racism is the active process of identifying and eliminating racism by changing systems, organizational structures, policies and practices and attitudes so that the power is redistributed and shared equally. Now, what I find interesting too is because the Ontario Anti-Racism Secretary says anti-racism is the practice of identifying, challenging, and changing the values, structures, and behaviors that perpetuate system racism. So I think that's a pretty solid definition of what anti-racism is. It goes on with other examples, but
I think that's a great definition, and I think we should revisit those points that are within that definition, because that's going to help shape this conversation. What values are the opposite? What values tend to, what are racist values? What is racism? Those, perhaps we should define that as well so that we're clear about what we're discussing.
the practice of anti-racism, it kind of goes into that, saying that, and they give a bullet points of identifying what's the difference.
Okay, can we go through those?
A person who practices anti-racism is someone who works to become aware of these points. One, how racism affects the lived experience of people of color and Indigenous people. And that's important, the lived experience. Two, how racism is systematic and has been a part of many foundational aspects of society throughout history, that it can be manifested in both individual attitudes and behaviors, as well as formal and also known as unspoken policies and practices within institutions. And the last one it says is how white people participate, often unknowingly, in racism. Pagan McIntosh and later Paul Cavell came up with what was called white privilege checklists that support white people in learning how whiteness, often without them recognizing it, shapes their place in society and its impacts.
Okay, that was totally a mouthful.
It was.
I think we need to relive that as well. I'm looking at a definition of racism right now, which is from the Merriam-Webster, the simplest definition. A belief that race is a fundamental detrimentant of human traits and capabilities, and the racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. A belief that race is a fundamental determinant, sorry, I said detrimented, a fundamental determinant of human traits and capabilities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. So that's our definition of racism, and that's our definition of anti-racism. How can someone show, in what ways can someone show that they are not just not racist, but anti-racist? And perhaps you guys can share some of your experiences. What's that, how you're doing it, how it comes up in your life, what you're encountering when you practice it, anti-racism.
I'd be happy to speak to that.
Amanda Harrison just arrived, and I think that was her.
Oh, sorry.
Hard time.
Summer, you want to go?
We're having a hard time hearing you. It's too bad, but I'm glad you're here. I just wanted to also kind of piggyback on the definition that Nichelle brought in, that I'm in a course on anti-racism right now. And one of the kind of definitions that is that racism, to me, I in some ways just want to say that I think part of anti-racism building is to be open to learning and to continue to be in the conversation and kind of like peel layers, that it feels like it's a deep depth of a way to define it. But the one that really speaks to this to me is around the abomination of nature, is in Alexandra Love's course, is how she defines anti-racism. So part of it for me, when you say, Nichelle, how are you participating, is, to me, it's like that there's sort of an opening, like that I actually feel like I come to the desire to co-create it all the time. And so it's sort of a place of not knowing in a way, but like there's key kind of parts of conversations or where there's triggers around, I would say mostly with my family, with my white family or white friends, where I feel there's sort of a triggered space, and how to kind of go into the conversation where the discord is, where it feels like it's become really personal and triggered.
Like there's some pushback. What
Yeah.
What are some specific ways? Because I'm thinking that perhaps people maybe who are listening out there may not. We're trying to make it as simple as possible for someone who maybe has been living under a rock and doesn't know what we're talking about. And so I know that as a Black person, before all of this movement happened, when I would try to talk to some of my white friends about racism, I would get that same pushback. And I think I can speak for all of my Black friends and family members who have friends who are not Black. When you start talking about racism, we know what you're talking about. We know that pushback that you're experiencing, and usually the person who's pushing back is in full denial that they're pushing back. Mm-hmm. They think they're being a participant. They don't realize that they're practicing racism in that moment, and they couldn't be further. So, if you're practicing racism, then you can't be further from being anti-racist than that. So, what I'm asking for are specific instances where you experience, your activism in trying to be anti-racist, and the examples of the pushback you experienced.
Yeah, I can give an exact example if you'd like. There's someone that's in our organization in the Sign Network, and he lives in an area in the U.S. that is Louisville, Kentucky. It's a pretty hot place, especially around racism and everything going on with Breonna Taylor. And this particular person, he's white, and he does a lot of great work in the world involving peace, and he works with a lot of people in the community that are Black, and he has a lot. It seems that is he's an ally. I feel allyship to Black people in Louisville, Kentucky, and he has. I'm not going to say his name because I just feel like it's not right.
Yeah, it's not necessary to know the names.
But what
you
I'm
can change his
aware
name to Jake or whatever from State Farm.
Okay, I just won't say his name. But I've heard that he thinks Black Lives Matter movement is actually not supporting Black lives, and that he actually thinks that it's creating more polarized and kind of pull away from Black and white, and thinks that it's not working. And so and this is coming from someone that told me this conversation, and the first thing that I'm hearing is a denial, and that it's actually coming from white, a white denial, that creating a context that doesn't, that is a push away from actually like honoring that's racist.
Does he have any
Yeah.
black friends?
What's that?
He works with them.
He's
You can be
surrounded.
racist and still have black friends, everybody.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm
yeah,
sorry to tell you. You know, if no one told you, I'm breaking the news to you now, white people of the world. You can even have black family members and still be a stark, raving white supremacist racist. So,
and Nichelle, what especially in the topic of this is very like, I am not racist, but am I anti-racist? I actually think that this particular scenario, that this person would probably say, I'm not racist, but there's, to me, a really big gap here between someone claiming and like, hey, I'm not racist, but then to actually claim anti-racism, I think is like, there's a huge gap between it.
There's a gap.
there is.
Just an experience.
There's a gap before that, because for that person even sit there and say I'm not racist, but to sit there and say Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean it to Black people. It's like you're already denying what we're already saying. You're not even acknowledging that part, you know. So to me, to sit there and say you're not racist because you work with some Black people, or you know some Black people, but to sit there and just deny our existence, that we're sitting there saying our lives matter, and then you're going to sit there and tell us we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it reminds me of the dynamic between men and women in a chauvinist or misogynist society, in a patriarchal society. We women are constantly saying what we want. We say it all the time. We say it loud and proud. We're not afraid to. We say what we want. And one of the stereotypes that I hear still reverberating is women don't know what they want. Women don't know what we want. We don't know what we're talking about. And the other is, I'll never understand them. Men say, I don't understand women. But if they would stop shutting us out, if they would stop shutting us down, they would learn something, because we've been speaking the whole time. Same thing in the white-black dynamic. We've been speaking the whole time. We've been speaking the whole time. We have not stopped. We've been quite consistently speaking the whole time. We've been tuned out by white people. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you don't know what you want. I don't know what you want. You know, it's the same. You can almost interject the same words that men say toward women. So it's the same thing. So, you know, it's almost as a man can say he's not a chauvinist, but say, you know, women should be pregnant and barefoot. So, you know, and not feel anything about that, you know, but he loves women, so he can't be a chauvinist, you know, so it's the same thing, you know.
There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
There's a big disconnect. One of the things that I do just personally for me is I participate in things like this, in other group discussions, reading books about anti-racism, racism, that sort of stuff, history, and then participating in discussions on those things. And one of the groups that I joined, it's now called the Anti-Racism Coalition, but it was called White Support for the Black Lives. And we do a lot of work with, you know, working around like, what is white privilege? What is this? How does it present itself in what ways? But the main thing that they talk about is that you can call yourself an anti-racist all you want, but do you actually put in the work? What are the actions that you take? And the focus is that we want to take anti-racism from being just something we call ourselves, to something we do.
Mhm.
So it's an action instead.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm not racist. That means I'm anti-racist.
Right. No.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It's not. It's, I mean, I can love as many Black people as I want, but I can still be racist.
Mhm.
I can be the nicest person in the world and I can still have racist ideas and
Mhm.
racist thoughts and racist, you know what I mean? But not actually have ill intent, but it still is hurtful.
Right.
And
You may not be acting on it, but they are part of your psyche or sub-psyche.
exactly. And it's what the world that we're raised in, right? This idea, this concept. I mean, even me growing up poor, right? Dirt poor in the projects, I still had more privilege, even so. And I know that, and I can recognize that. But it's other people, like they have to learn where their white privilege is, no matter how dirt poor they grew up. If they're white, they still had a privilege that Black people didn't have.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that, please? And say it loud to the people in the back and all the other people in the Zoom. One more time, what it's like as a poor white person, because I hear this a lot, it's like, I'm poor, I'm white, I don't have any kind of privilege whatsoever. So please repeat.
Right.
It's absolutely false. You can be poor and white and you still have more privilege than Black people do. Period.
And I could still have all the money in the world and still be racially profiled by the popo.
That's
and
right.
still be shut out. And it's, when I picked you up from the airport, going down Crenshaw Boulevard, Nene, remember when we were trying to get a house and we could not get into these white neighborhoods? It's like the only place we can actually get into is in Crenshaw, is Inglewood. This is the Black neighborhood, right?
Because redlining is still a thing.
And what happened a year later? They raised our rent by $1,000 on top of what we was already paying.
Because of gentrification, yes.
They kicked us out of the Black neighborhood. So as I'm going down Crenshaw, so I can go and get my ackee and sawfish down there, you know what I see them doing? Building this big old Millennium Hotel in Crenshaw, in Inglewood. The same place where I couldn't even live before, and then I got in, and they kicked me out of there. And now I'm out here in the sticks. So
right. But the sticks where you are is not so bad. You got a sweet pad, and far more than you would have in Los Angeles. So you came out. You're still winning big, my sister. But I was gonna say that I think that we need to talk about privilege again. What the definition of privilege? This is my definition of one of my definitions of privilege, white privilege, which is, well, I wouldn't say it's a definition. It's a thought. White privilege does not mean that you haven't worked your butt off for your entire life to have the things that you have and to be where you are. It does not mean that you haven't worked your butt off to have those things. It means that your hard work is valued. And so value is a recirculating theme here, which was mentioned in your definition of anti-racism, a system of values. What is valuable in the system of white supremacy? What does being white mean in society? These are questions that you should be asking yourselves. What does whiteness mean? And this is going to force you to walk a mile in someone Black's shoes. You can look from the outside and see in. Everybody knows. Everybody wants to be Black until it's time to be Black. That's something that I say a lot. Everybody wants to dance, talk like, act like, blah, 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 all of that. But then when it comes down to having to face what it truly means to be Black, not just in this country, but in the world, because there's nowhere that Black people can go in this world where we won't be discriminated against. It doesn't matter if we're on the continent of Africa or in Borneo. we're still going to experience discrimination based upon the paint job that we have, nothing else. That's just, and so when people see that, everyone knows what that means. All the jokes are built upon it. All the statements, all the stereotypes are built upon that. So knowing that you don't have to worry when you're applying for a job and it asks what race you are, that when I look at that, I always freeze, because it's like, do I say I decline to answer that, or do I say yes? Either way, I feel like they're going to know that I'm Black and it's going to count against me. When you are a white person, you can proudly check the white box, and there's no strike against you at all, ever, in nothing, in any situation, because of the color of your skin. That's just considered the norm. So being white is a value in the system of white supremacy. What else is valued in the system of white supremacy? A certain way of speaking. What else is valued in the system of white supremacy? Straight hair. What else is valued in the system of white supremacy? Where you live, how much money you make. What else is valued in the system of white supremacy? I'm not going to answer them all. Go.
I just wanted to acknowledge as well Amanda Harrison, who she's a Black woman in the Zoom room here, and just has a hard connection, but she's been contributing in the comments as well.
I have not seen the comments. What has she shared? I want to know.
So she has shared, we'll say, about her service, but she was giving her definition on racism before. So racism might be intentional or not. Anti-racism requires intentional actions to counter the harms of racism. And I believe this is also her contribution to what a white privilege, meaning I think of it as an immunity to the negative stigma of being Black. My audio is poor. I'd appreciate, so that's, what
I think those are all great. Those are all great to hang on. What do you think, Heather?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much for your thoughtful, courageous energy and comments. What's coming to my heart right now with these questions is I came across a quote recently that says, if you don't have to think about it, then it's a privilege. And that really touched me deeply and got me to continue this introspection about the own privilege that I carry. And the fact that, I don't like getting pulled over by the cops, but I don't ever think about that I'm going to get shot. Mm-hmm. If I want to, as Antoinette was speaking to, like, if I want to buy a house, I don't ever have to think about redlining, that I'm going to be impacted by that. If I'm going to apply for a job, I don't ever have to think about the fact that because my name's Heather and it's a white name, I'm going to get a phone call and an interview offered over someone that has a Black name. And those are just a few examples.
Yeah.
That honestly, I'm almost 46 years old, and up until this last year, have I really thought about that? And I would say that, to the best of my ability, I haven't been racist in my life. Have I been anti-racist? No. That's certainly my intent. And I know that I've got a long way to go with it. Yet I do so resonate with the definition that it's about action. It's so much about action, and it takes a lot of courage, and it takes being in integrity and being willing to be real about the privilege that we carry and how much racism is a part of our society. Nothing has changed in hundreds and hundreds of years. It may kind of have a different framework a little bit right now, but nothing's changed. It's still in place.
Mhm.
And I feel like a lot of white people are still in a place of a lot of denial and defensiveness.
Yeah,
It's like,
because
I'm sorry, go ahead, Nisha.
go, you
No,
finish your
please,
thought.
please. Well, that's like the stumbling block. You know, it's like if we as white people refuse to let down the defenses and refuse to be willing to really see our reality for what it is until we can get to that place, that anti-racism step is going to be next to impossible for a lot of folks. You've got to be willing to be real with yourself. And
I agree.
yes.
I agree. And I also think that um, here's another bombshell. If you are not practicing anti-racism, it is racist.
Yes.
You are still perpetuating the system of white supremacy racism when you do not practice anti-racism. And I saw a comment that Amanda Harrison put in the chat, anti-racist, pronounce a person's name properly, encourage others to do so. This is, for example, we hear people talk about Obama's name and Kampala's name. What other what other presidents were criticized about their name? That's an example. You know, when you hear, maybe you listen to a coworker or a family member or a friend mispronouncing someone's name who, I know. I know it's Amanda corrected herself. She meant Kamala, and I knew, but I kept that in there because a person might say something like that. They may pronounce her name Kampala, knowing that full well that it's Kamala, but mispronouncing someone's name intentionally is practicing racism and cracking jokes about ethnicities, calling countries shithole countries, practicing racism. That's practicing. So that, you know, that's not anti-racist. And yeah, as Heather brought up, it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of courage. You're going to need the patience of Job. You're going to need the patience of the average Black American.
We got some
To-
patience.
Are quite patient, losing it, but you know, there's still this much there. You know, for some people, there's none. They're not on this panel right now because they cannot. You know, and that's I totally understand. But for some of us, we still have the patience to have a show like this, to contribute and try to help, where others of us are exasperated. And I quite honestly feel that way. I vacillate between wanting to help and not wanting to help at all because it's that frustrating. Just, you know, I'm using all my energy stores to just live my life because it's that taxing. But yeah, it takes a lot of courage to be anti-racist. What other ways can we be anti-racist?
I want to add one thing about that. It's something I worked on community college for the ASPCC, and we would do diversion day, and we would do things, and it's just we talk about transgender and color and how to approach these things. And the thing I hear so often, particularly from white people, is, oh, well, there's minority jobs. The very comment in that way is racist. The fact that anyone says that we're doing one thing and thinking it's enough is a racist comment. Throwing out
Oh, we had a Black president. Isn't
Right,
it
right.
over?
And so literally I hear these people say these things. Or the other one that really bothered me was having students say, because now we mandate that these students that work for the school have to attend. No one is required to attend these in college, but when you work for the college, you have to attend. And then I start hearing, oh, well, this is reverse racism. it blew my mind, because that alone is one of the most racist things you could say to a person of color who is doing the best they can to educate and support. You're taking away their voice. Sometimes white people just need to shut up and stand beside them and let that be heard, rather than constantly feeling that you have to defend yourself. You know, I see it a lot, that people think that because these people, this is a real struggle, that they have to defend their own person rather than defending humanity.
Let's talk about reverse racism. Let's talk about that idea.
Yeah, one of the things when they talk about affirmative action, I mean, when you were talking about the jobs thing, I really think that with the jobs applications, they shouldn't put names or ethnicities on the application. They should just do it by numbers. Because I'm so sick and tired, and I'm telling you, when I say that I'm
Great idea.
sick and tired, because they say, oh, with affirmative action, it's like they're giving it jobs to unqualified Black people, you know? And I'm like, what unqualified Black people? Because right now, you know, if you look at the tech industry, as far as in Silicon Valley, the top students of the courses of the colleges in Silicon Valley are Black and Hispanic. They're the top of the class. And because of affirmative action, they have to let in that one Black person in there. You know,
But you go to a lot of tech companies and scratch and scrape to see someone Black besides the receptionist, which is what a lot of racist companies do. They put a Black face in the front, and then behind that Black face is nothing but a white wall.
So when they have that one person in there, and then everybody else is sitting there saying, oh, but you know, they gave away my jobs to like unqualified Black people. It's like, you know something, if we just put a number on this, like seriously, because I worked in the corporate world in Beverly Hills and also New York City. If you just put a number on the application without the name, whether it's John or Shaquan, and nothing, and you watch and see what happens about the amount of minorities that would actually be hired anywhere. And
I agree. I think that's a wonderful brainstorm. We should probably.
If we get a job in the corporate world, we're so happy to get this job. It's like we'd be afraid. I remember when I was working in Beverly Hills, I'm like, I'm gonna take my space outside, you know, during my lunch hour. I'm gonna take it away from the building. And while I'm walking through the whole floor, everybody's on MySpace. Everybody related to somebody in the company, their friend, their brother, or, you know, that type of privilege of hooking up their family within these companies. And then these Black men who are graduating with straight A's and everything are down there in the basement, you know, delivering mail. By the time they get up to the 20th floor, that ain't even gonna happen in their lifetime. And they have the skills, they have the qualification, they have the education, you know, so it's like, let's just clear the slate and just put a number on every single application and then see what happens, see what the pick of the litter actually is.
I just want to bring in Amanda Harrison, and Mira Michelle is in the Zoom room as well. Welcome, Mira Michelle. A couple comments coming in. I agree, except when they are working to make sure that a job has a diverse pool, you have to know who is and isn't there. It also allows folks to assess if certain requirements might be screening out people of color. And then she also just added racism. That's not how we do things. Anti-racism, what other ways can we do this? Who is being left out of this conversation? Let's make sure we have more voices. So,
what do you mean by let's make sure we have more voices? Who's being left out of this conversation? Can you be specific?
Well, part of it too, that I'm just kind of realizing as we're in this conversation, that there's something about racism feels like it's like, this is where I stand and there's no other way. I'm not open. This is how I think, or like, I am not racist, even like to the topic of what we're talking about, that I feel like when someone says that, they're not open to thinking any other way. And that anti-racism is like an opening, and it isn't. It also feels like, especially what Heather was saying, that she realizing that she hasn't been anti-racist, that I also feel like there's a part of the racism that I have been living and breathing in as a white woman
in America, that I'm still feeding the systems that are based in white supremacist systems, that even though I would say I am working on anti-racism culture building, I know there's still work to be done. Like that it's a process versus like, this is what I am. But
Yeah,
just a
it's
little.
ingrained deeply into society, so much so racism has been ingrained deeply into society, so much so that we don't even realize it when we're living in it. And that's both sides. Both sides are hurting by this. So one side hurting more, of course, but everyone hurts in this, because even if you are well-meaning white person and want to totally distance yourself, several light years from this, you can find yourself entrapped in it, depending on the various situations that you're dealing with in your life. So you may look up and you may say something that you heard in childhood that seemed like very innocuous, that turns out to be racist, and then it gets pointed out to you and you're like, ah, I thought that I had rid myself of this ugly scourge, because it's like that. It's so deep. The rabbit hole of racism is so deep that it seems almost insurmountable to get out of. But I think that having conversations like this and defining various situations and giving your life experiences helps other people identify those situations in their own lives.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I was gonna say, one of the other things in the in that other group that I'm in is we talk a lot about being comfortable being uncomfortable. That the only time people change things is when they're uncomfortable, right? You only want to make a change once you're uncomfortable, because when you're comfortable, then that feels good and we're not going to change it. So we have to remember that being anti-racist doesn't mean being comfortable. It means being uncomfortable so that you do the work to be anti-racist. It also means that you have to do this for the rest of your life. You will always be working at being anti-racist. It's not something like you just take a course and, oh, look at that, I'm anti-racist now. Like that's not how it works. You keep working at it. You have to keep working at it, because you're going to come across situations where maybe you're at a party and some white people are telling jokes, and what do? Do you confront them? Do you say, hey, that's not okay? Or do you protect yourself from being attacked by the group because you stepped up? Are you willing to get attacked? Are you willing to be the focal point of their anger when you confront them with their racism?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of being anti-racist. You
Right.
have to be willing to put yourself in those situations, and you have to be willing to step up to those people, because if you don't, then you're just enabling it further.
Yeah, silence gives consent. Apathy is, if you're not speaking against it, then you must be for it. And so, if you're not practicing anti-racism, then you are practicing racism. It's pretty simple. It's hard, cold, hard, jagged pill to swallow, but it is the truth. So that's where we have to be mindful. And I think that the idea, the example of, checking some people at a party, of course, nicely, whatever, you can always do the hit and run. That's racist and blah, 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 blah. And then I'm off to the drink table. They don't get to, retort, no rebuttals. They're not taking rebuttals, no comments.
Check your friends and family on Facebook.
Yeah, check your friends.
Sometimes I go through my people's newsfeed, and I've lost a lot of friends, and I lost friends because I called them out for not calling out their friends and family. They got upset with me because they said, well, I didn't say that. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't check them and call them out on it. And if you're not willing to sit there and call them out on it, then you really ain't really checking for me either. Really, at this point, like you said, it's taxing, and I'm tired. I'm so tired and I'm so exhausted. that to try, but I feel like we do still have to take the time and muster up this energy to sit there and educate white people, because a lot of them just don't understand and they just don't know that so this is going to require more work for me to do. But if I don't do it, how are they ever going to know? If
I
I
think
don't outline
that,
it, say anything, how will they ever learn? They're not going to do it by themselves willingly and openly.
no, people, like she said, like your friend said, I'm sorry, new friends, I forgot your names, but I honor your presence. Just like you said, if it's comfortable, then why would you want to fix what's not broken? So there has to be some discomfort, expected there. Um, Denial is a hell of a drug, and you're going to hit that big, keg of denial, several kegs of denial at every party. I've been there. I've been, asked, what are you doing here? Just pointedly kind of, situations. So, when you're a Black person, anti-racism comes with you because you're basically fighting for your existence, fighting for your right to exist. And when you're a white person and you're practicing anti-racism, you become an ally. You get that pin, that badge that says, don't try it around me, and here's why. Um,
And then when you become an anti-racist, that's when you become an accomplice. That's when you
Right.
become a ride or die homie,
Right. I'm calling them allies. They, we can know them by many different names, but yes, an accomplice, an ally, a friend. Just remember that in this anti-racism fight, you're going to be treated as an N-word lover. Okay, that's a phrase. A lot of people are afraid of that because they know. This is why I posit that people know. They're not ignorant. People know because the whole reason that some people are not practicing anti-racism is because they're fearing the backlash, which means they know that there is a value system set up to dislike Black people. So if you didn't know, then I think that you would be more likely to just rush in and be anti-racist and defend without a fear of reprisal. But the fact that there is a fear of reprisal means that you know what's going on. Just like Dr. Jane Elliott said, it says that you know that there's something wrong. You know you don't want it for you. Why are you so willing to let it happen for other people? If you want to be treated the way Black people are in this country, raise your hand. Raise your hand. You want to be treated the way Black people are in this country. And none of those people, she asked them to stand, none of those women, none of those men, no one stood up because they know. So it's not an ignorance, it's denial. Denial means that there is knowledge, but you're choosing not to employ that knowledge. There's no ignorance.
Yeah, thank you.
That's another jagged pill for the Black people, because we often try to give the benefit of the doubt by saying that maybe white people don't know, but you guys know.
Mira Michelle, welcome. Did you have any thoughts before we start to close it out?
You mean close out this one specific part of the conversation?
Oh no, we're ending in 10 minutes.
What?
Well, the conversation never ends, but the live stream we were planning on ending in 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. I'm catching up, obviously. Well, the question between ignorance and denial, this response is right on target, I feel, and it's obviously on our planet wake up time, and for so many different reasons. And this is one of the biggest, right? We have to lose our superiority / inferiority complexes. you know, and this is painful for all of us, but it's especially painful for people of color, right? And I don't think anyone really wants to live that way. I mean, there's one word I really love to employ, and I think we've all said it at different times, and that's courage. You know, we have to, and we have to be more courageous about what kind of planet we want to live on, you know. And so it's all very courageous. Every single human in this call, I have goosebumps right now, to speak their truth, you know, in the way that they do for themselves and their lives. So we are like being forced at the moment on our planet to get courageous, you know. So we ought to be mama and papa lions at the moment and face that, like our sweet sister Nichelle said, that jagged pill, you know. Let's make it a hard to swallow that jagged pill, but go ahead and do it situation, you know.
You know, it's going to make you better. You got to take your medicine.
It is. And, you know, for me, in the end, it's really about consciousness, you know, and we need to realize that we're one human family. And it's a blessing, this diversity on our planet. We don't want to eat the same kind of apples every time. I know that's a simplistic way to see it, but it's also very profound, because I use the apple because it's such a, you know, archaic symbol for us. So we need to wake up and keep taking those steps forward immediately. This is the cure we need.
Yeah.
You know. And the bigger picture is that we have to change. I'm sorry to say have to. I'm not a big have to or should person, but we really do have to change the system in itself. So we have to work on the micro. We were talking a lot about the micro. We have to work on the macro. They work together. And so that's one way I would say to every single human being, whatever wonderful shade you ended up being on the planet, is that look at the system that you live in your life and make a personal step, and then have a look at the more collective step you could take, you know. If you don't care now, you're going to be forced to care at some point, and that's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
You know what? Go ahead. So, you know, as far as the anti-racist and what, you know, a lot of you guys have been saying over and over again is that it's really going to be a very uncomfortable thing to do. You know, to be anti-racist is not like going to Disneyland or going shopping, or, you know, it's like, I'm looking forward to being anti-racist and, you know, this is going to be fun. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard. And, you know, as many people who tell me that we're one human family and one love, is like, yeah, yeah, I know that. But right now, I'm not part of one love and part of the one human family.
Right.
And two, it's like, so if you want the one love and if you want the one human family, you're going to have to work to gain sure that we all get it too, that we're part of that one love and we're also part of that one family. So it's like the list. So next time when we get together, you know, we should have like these long lists. You know, we're just really scratching the surface here on how to be an anti-racist. But when we come back, I expect everybody to have like 50 things at least, you know, and we just compare our list together on like, how can we be an effective anti-racist every single day? Not just on Saturdays, not just on Sundays, not just, you know, oh, I was anti-racist for a moment, you know, here the other day. Oh, last week, you know, I was really happy about that. But no, every single day, there's so many opportunities to be of service, you know, that we can do that.
Absolutely. I think that we should also talk about how we can create a new system, because I think we need to dismantle and burn that other one, bury it in the sand, deep, deep, deep in a lead box somewhere, you know, make it disintegrate, you know, something that you find in a scary movie where somebody digs it up later and is like, what's this racism? Ah, you know, it becomes a movie. But that's what needs to happen with this system of perceived white supremacy. We all know that it doesn't exist, but we have a whole international, a global system that's bent, that is dedicated to the subjugation of anyone who is not white. And so that's what we're charged with dismantling. That's the baton that we're fashioning now to pass on to those who are younger than us, who will be here long after we're gone. And thank God we have some warriors in the younger generations, because all that recalcitrance and belligerence that drove us all crazy, those of us of a certain age, it's necessary for this battle in favor of equality for all.
Yeah, I see a comment from Ray Dean. I like that it is made clear that white people know what's happening. Truth will set us free. So we have to continue. We're gonna have to continue this on and over. Any final thoughts, anyone?
I'm glad to see everyone. I don't get out much.
Come over, saying something.
I wanted to add something about the end of that article that I was reading about anti-racism. Talks about something that you guys really touched on, about the primary focus for social change, nonetheless, is racism, which is complicated and often reinforced by other forms of oppression. And because we live in a society that is so resistant to and uncomfortable with discussions of racism, it is imperative to maintain that primary focus, that it's important to identify the oppression, to talk about it, to let Black lives have their lived experience, and to not justify or stop them. Like, the more we talk about it and the more people come together, the more we're fighting societal racism, because nobody wants you to do this type of stuff. I mean, I know, like, when I'm with my family and stuff, people are like, it's very taboo to even be women together talking, much less talking about topics like this in this type of forum. I think it's been a real honor for me to be here with my partners of positivity. And I really thank everybody for including me in this today. This was very rewarding.
So make sure you join us next month.
I will, for sure.
Absolutely. I'd love to see everyone again.
Yeah. All right, then.
I would like to, I have a little thought, this is, I'm doing, my primary work is as a energy psychologist. And I was sitting here musing, it's a funny little idea, but you know how we say, well, for personal growth, we need to heal our inner child, but the planet can get a flip on that. And for our personal growth, we can heal our inner racist, because healing the inner racist is an act of humanity, right? And it's an act towards what our sister Antoinette was saying, that one love. And it's literally a huge self-healing possibility in there, because you're walking around with that level of density, that hate button inside, which is at its base, it's insecurity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that we can start that one now. Heal yourself, heal the world, embrace your inner racist, and get real.
Right. That touches on one more thing that I said it in the beginning, but I want to stress this. Everybody, every white person, everybody has the potential to be racist, no matter how nice they are, no matter how much they love. They still have that ability to have a racist thought, a racist idea, a racist concept. And we have to understand that just because I'm a nice person doesn't mean that I can't have had racist thoughts and beliefs. And I just have to be willing to accept that. And that's what we have to remember as white people. We have to be willing to accept what is racist within us so that we can change it. Because if we don't accept that, we can't change it.
Amen.
I also just want to say too that what I so appreciate about being part of this conversation. We've been doing this now for 6 months, and I feel like there's just this opening, like we're in this doorway, and it keeps getting more and more and more clear and more understanding of the sense. And something that Nichelle said about systems, that, you know, what if what and how we do everything is the system? And so what are we feeding the world from the system? Are we feeding that courage, as Mira Michelle, that consciousness of actually like really shining light in more and more of the privilege? Just, I'm going to speak for myself, my white privilege. Am I shining more and more light on that part of my inner racist? You know, am I getting curious and opening up to more of that? Because to me, sometimes when I think of systems, it's like so overwhelming. And maybe that's that, like, my privilege, that I'm tapping into my privilege of like, whoa, where do I even start with system? But like, I guess for those listening, I just wonder if we could think of ourselves, our bodies, and everything that we do is system. And what are we doing? What is the, in everything that we're doing, as it's been said here, anti-racism culture building is happening all the time, and we aren't ever going to stop. This isn't like a one-shop course for a couple months. We're going to have this conversation now, and I'm going to go back to being racist after I'm done being on the live stream. This is like a constant opening to, you know, like, anti-racism is like this doorway that I just feel keeps getting more wider and more open and understanding of just that, being in that witness space. So I just want to like thank you all. I continue to just be blown away by this space and where this goes. And I look forward to the day, Nichelle, that we can all like actually be in a physical space together.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
I'm going to just like cast that forward into the future.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Summer. I appreciate your honesty. You know, I love your honesty, and I appreciate your honesty. And so we'll be back again next month, you know, as we continue this conversation on I'm not racist and how to be an anti-racist. And also, you know, and just put this back in your mind as well too, if Black lives still matter, you know, because if you said it the other day, you thought about it. So think about it today, you know, if they still matter, then we know that there's work that's going to have to be continued each and every single day. And we're going to continue working on that. We're going to continue addressing, and we're going to continue listening to our sisters. We're all here. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being with us. You know, I love you guys.
Love you too.
Love that at you. And there's lots of links too of information about a lot of the women that are connected to this core group that do and offer anti-racism work. So I really want to like just speak and highlight that. And also our next one will be on November 23rd. So we'll have more information on this Bridging the Divide Facebook page. So please like Bridging the Divide and know that we'll be back.
All right. One love.
One love.
One love. Bye.